The nation of Iran has joined an elite and deadly club. Just 8 nations on planet Earth can sail an aircraft carrier, an absolute powerhouse of the high seas that can bring devastating implications for those who dare oppose them. The United States leads the world at 11. China is soon to introduce its 3rd, and the entire rest of the world can sail just 10 aircraft carriers combined. Until now, that is. On the 6th of February 2025, Iran welcomes a new entry into service, the Shahid Bagheri, a nearly 800-foot-long giant that could make the world quake in its boots. But even just weeks into its service life, the Shahid Bagheri is becoming a bit of a meme, and the reasons that it's going viral are not the ones that Iran was hoping for. From its unconventional origins to its strange design to the fact that calling it an aircraft carrier at all is perhaps a bit generous, most of the Western world seems to have decided that the Shahid Bagheri is going to be a laughingstock. So, why did Iran bother to build it? What strategic value does Tehran see in its new toy? And could the entire world be dismissing the Shahid Bagheri perhaps a little too soon? Have you ever wondered why you're getting so many spam calls, so many spam emails? Oh my god, I did wonder for a long time, but then I started doing these sponsorship reads for Incogni and I realized it was something called data brokers. And I realized data brokers really suck because, I hate spam emails. You get a call from an unknown number and you're like, hello, and you have that pause, where the computer's listening to see if you've said hello. And then it's like, and it connects you to someone and they're like, blah, 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 blah. You're like, no, stop, I don't want to buy whatever you're selling, leave me alone. But look, this hassle, this nightmare, if you will, can be avoided with today's sponsor, Incogni. Incogni automatically contacts data brokers on your behalf, demanding that they remove your private information. It's a set-it-and-forget-it way to keep your data out of the wrong hands, and by wrong hands, we mean in the hands of data brokers. Data brokers suck. And if you think this doesn't affect you, think again. When big companies like the BT Group suffer ransomware attacks, leaked data often ends up with data brokers, which makes you an easy target for identity theft, scams, and the oh-so-relentless march of spam. So, take back control with Incogni. Right now, you can get 60% off an annual plan by using the code MEGAPROJECTS at incogni.com/megaprojects. Again, that's incogni.com/megaprojects. Stay private, stay protected. And now back to today's video. To trace the origins of the Shahid Bagheri, we have to wind back the clock and talk about a ship that once went by a different name, the Peregrine. The Peregrine was a cargo ship built by Hyundai Heavy Industries in South Korea and completed in the year 2000. Weighing in at a hair under 42,000 metric tons and measuring 240 meters from bow to stern, the Peregrine sailed around the world for a bit under 2 decades, loaded up with containers like about 5,000 other ships across the world at any given time. It went through a couple of name changes, temporarily known as the Iran Kerman and then as the Silver Craft, but otherwise it was entirely unremarkable. That was until it disappeared. Now, for cargo ships to just stop sailing, it's not that unusual. They typically have a service life of about 30 years or less before being scrapped, and although the Peregrine would have retired a little young, it probably would have just been forgotten after it reached its final port in 2019. Or that is, it would have been forgotten until it was spotted via open source photos published in early 2023 by the naval warfare expert H.I. Sutton. In the photos, a ship that's since been identified as the Peregrine was spotted in dry dock at a shipyard of the Iranian Navy near the Strait of Hormuz. There, it appeared to be in the process of being converted into an aircraft carrier. At that time, it was reported to bear the name Shahid Madavi. It would eventually, though, be assigned its operational name, Shahid Bagheri, in homage to former commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps who had died during the Iran-Iraq War. Shahid means martyr, and Bagheri was the man's last name. Now, it was already clear to Sutton and other naval experts at the time that if Iran were going to refer to this refitted cargo ship as a proper aircraft carrier, then they were probably stretching the truth. An aircraft carrier, in the traditional sense, needs to carry fixed-wing manned aircraft like America's F-A-18 Hornet, Britain's Harrier jump jet, or China's J-15 Flying Shark. That's already a major problem for Iran, seeing as it has a grand total of 0 carrier-capable fighter jets or other planes at this time, and seems to have no plans to pick up any in the future. Instead, the Shahid Bagheri seemed to be a combination drone and helicopter carrier, something that's actually a good deal more common around the world. For perspective, the United States has 9 currently in service, Japan has 4, China and France each have 3, and countries from Algeria to Brazil to Thailand to Turkey each have 1 of their own. For Iran, a drone carrier wouldn't just have made more sense than a fixed-wing aircraft carrier on the basis of Iran not having any carrier-capable planes, although, again, that's really all the rationale you need. Instead, it made sense because both at the time it was spotted and even more so today, unmanned drone warfare is arguably Iran's greatest modern military strength. In a telling indicator of the ship's ultimate purpose, Iran's official explanation for it at the time was that it was being used to store drones and, according to Sutton, grow the long-range strike capabilities of the country. Now, the first sighting of the Shahid Bagheri indicated that its refit had been ongoing for some time. Already the deck of the old ship had been fully removed, a large portion of the flight deck had been added, jutting out from the port side of the vessel, and a new flight deck was already being installed over the rest of the ship. Wrote Sutton at that time, quoting here, "The fact that the superstructure spans the original deck means that a traditional aircraft carrier layout is not possible. The angles on the added flight deck are also not traditional. Perhaps this hints at a flight deck running across from port to starboard ahead of the superstructure." The quote ends. To visualize that, you can think of a letter X and then take away one of its two diagonal lines and set it straight, representing the hull of the original cargo ship, while the remaining diagonal line would have represented the shape of the flight deck. Later photos, however, would reveal that Iran had gone a different way with the ship. In an image that circulated in August 2024, the Shahid Bagheri was shown to have its flight deck jutting out only from the port side, where it had been seen in dry dock, with the ship's little runway ending in a ski jump design similar to several modern aircraft carriers. Behind the flight deck was a large control tower, similar in shape and proportions to the bridge and accommodation section of a cargo ship. The images also reveal something equally, if not more important, that the Shahid Bagheri was now out of dry dock, floating on open water. Iran hadn't made any announcements around the ship or its expected date of commission by that time, but it was clearly making quick progress. Later satellite images would show that by November of 2024, it was already undergoing sea trials. Now look, any ship of this kind is meant to confer a real strategic advantage on the nation that sails it, and for Iran, of course, that is absolutely no different. But in the Shahid Bagheri's case, it actually managed to inflame a major panic in the United States, the global superpower that Iran has long considered an arch-nemesis, before it even entered service. Our American viewers will no doubt recall the controversy that gripped the nation in early 2025 when mysterious unmanned drones were reported flying in formation and making unexplained passes at numerous locations nationwide, especially in the Mid-Atlantic region. During that whole affair, a congressman from New Jersey, Representative Jeff Van Drew, claimed that an Iranian drone mothership was operating off the coast of his home state and coordinating the entire scare. The drone mothership he was referring to seems to have been the Shahid Bagheri, and the claim took on a life of its own online. The real Shahid Bagheri hadn't yet finished up sea trials at that time, as was confirmed by satellite imagery not long after Van Drew made his false claim, but we can imagine that the Ayatollahs probably had a good laugh about it. In reality, the Shahid Bagheri was commissioned on the 6th of February 2025 and has since been showed off to the world by the Iranian state media. The Shahid Bagheri measures a full-length bow to stern of 240.2 meters or 788 feet and 1 inch. It features a beam or a width of 32.2 meters, at its widest point it's about 106 feet. The ship sails with a draft of 11.7 meters or 38.5 feet. That's the distance between the waterline and the deepest submerged point of the ship when at full capacity. According to Iranian state media, it displaces just a hair short of 42,000 metric tons, roughly the same mass as India's INS Vikrant, China's Liaoning, and Shandong, or France's Charles de Gaulle. The Shahid Bagheri is powered by a conventional engine and is rated as a level of seaworthiness, according to the leader of the Iranian Navy, that allows it to operate across oceans as a blue water asset. The vessel's 180-meter-long runway, or just short of 600 feet, ends in a sloping ski jump to enable easier takeoff and landing. These sorts of ski jump launch help aircraft to take off at shorter distances without the use of a catapult launch system, and while the use of a ski jump often constrains the variety of aircraft that a carrier can launch, that's not likely to be nearly as severe of a limitation for Iran's drones. State media footage of the flight deck indicates that some of its onboard drones use arresting wires to land, and the video shows that the ship is equipped with arresting gear to match. The ship is billed as being able to travel at sea independently for periods of up to a year, and it's advertised as having an even longer endurance in terms of sheer engine performance, capable of 1,000 days of continual operation. Its operating range is listed at 40,700 kilometers or 22,000 nautical miles. It can hit a top speed of 22 knots, that's 41 kilometers or 25 miles per hour. In addition to onboard space for a crew complement of unknown numbers, it is said to feature a fully functional onboard hospital as well as a football field. That's soccer for Americans, and it will be below deck. Of course, it features a control tower, as would be expected with any aircraft carrier meant to serve a stated function. For its air compartment, the Shahid Bagheri is purportedly able to carry and launch a range of helicopters and drones, including several types of Iranian carrier drone. The Ababil 3N, the Jas 313, the Homer, and the Mojaher 6, among others. Now we'll discuss these drones and what they're capable of in just a moment. Along with its fixed-wing drones, the carrier can fly a variety of helicopters, and although it's only ever been pictured with 4 or fewer helicopters on board, it could probably fit more than that. Additionally, the vessel is purportedly able to carry no fewer than 30 fast attack craft from its interior, lowered down into the water from doors on either side of the hull. Those fast attack craft, judging by images from Iranian state media, are quite small, and the launching mechanism may be compatible with both manned craft of a few tons displacement and potentially even unmanned surface vessels, or USVs, better understood in a practical sense as drone boats. For a look at unmanned surface vessels in greater detail, we've published a prior episode on the sea drones that have been deployed in Ukraine, so check that out if you'd like a handy analogue. For purposes of its own defense, the Shahid Bagheri features an automatic cannon on a turret, several onboard Gatling guns, 8 surface-to-air missiles known as the Kossar 222, and 8 anti-ship missiles. Those anti-ship missiles are either a reverse-engineered missile initially of Chinese origin, the Nor, or an indigenously developed cruise missile called the Kader. According to the head of the Iranian Navy, the ship also features signals intelligence and passive electromagnetic listening technology, as well as the capacity to deploy remote drone submarines, although any further information on either of those capabilities is as yet unknown. Alright, now, we explained at the outset that the Shahid Bagheri has quickly become something of a meme in the international defense world, or, dare we say it, even a bit of a laughing stock. And in a way, we've got to admit there is a bit of comedy in the whole thing, isn't there? First, Iran really did just take a cargo ship, take it apart, and graft a weird approximation of an aircraft carrier flight deck onto the top. It's not even the first time Iran has made a ship that way. Just look at the Shahid Radaki and the Shahid Madavi vessels, each very obviously refitted into warships after having started their lives as cargo ships. Iran also has billed the Shahid Bagheri as an aircraft carrier, when, definitionally, it's just not. It's only capable of launching drones and helicopters, and even if it was a proper aircraft carrier, Iran has no aircraft for it to carry. The lopsided flight deck design is quite simply a weird choice, and given Iran's penchant for hyping up technologies that end up just being a lot of vaporware, there's a lot of understandable skepticism around the Shahid Bagheri's ability to be a naval vessel of actual value. Not only that, but the ship comes with some real practical limitations. First and foremost, Iran only has one copy of this new drone carrier, meaning that in reality, it'll quite often have 0. Ships like these need to spend a good portion of each year undergoing maintenance work, participating in training, and resupplying in friendly ports. This ship, in particular, relying on the hull of an old cargo ship and perhaps keeping other design elements, will probably have a greater maintenance load than most. Nor does Iran have the other ships that would allow the Shahid Bagheri to deploy as part of a carrier strike group like the carriers of other nations. Iran's Shahid Soleimani-class twin-hull missile corvettes can at least manage a range of 9,300 kilometers or 5,000 nautical miles, meaning that under the right circumstances, a couple of them could be assigned to join the Shahid Bagheri for parts of an overseas journey. So could a similar twin-hull support ship, the Shahid Nazeri. Each of those ships, however, isn't really equipped for those sorts of operations, and the only other Iranian warship that could match the Shahid Bagheri's range, the aforementioned converted cargo ship, the Shahid Madavi, is far slower. Any of those options are a far cry from the destroyers and frigates that accompany American, Chinese, or British carrier strike groups, and for Iran to have a deficiency in that area, it's not just an optics problem. Those other ships are essential to keep aircraft carriers safe in times of war and protect both its crew and its onboard air wing. Even a standard aircraft carrier operating all by itself in a worst-case scenario would at least have its complement of aircraft to keep it safe. The Iranian drones that the Shahid Bagheri can launch aren't anywhere near as capable of defending their mothership. But despite the Shahid Bagheri's drawbacks, there's a very real set of arguments that suggest it shouldn't be written off entirely, or even that it could be a genuinely formidable force to reckon with in the right combat environment. Unlike the vast majority of global air forces, where nations rely primarily on manned aircraft and treat unmanned drones as a supporting asset, Iran has built its approach to 21st century aerial warfare around the use of combat drones. For Iran, that's not an ideal situation. The decision is driven largely by Iran's aging manned aircraft, many of which are suspected to not be airworthy at all, and the crush of sanctions that prevents either repairs or acquisitions of new kit. But it's a reality that Iran has committed to fully navigating, and today Iran boasts a wider array of drones than most nations on Earth. Much of its arsenal is battle-tested in service to Iranian proxy forces from Syria to Yemen to Lebanon and elsewhere, and a fair portion of those battle-tested assets have passed those tests with flying colors. To understand a bit better what the Shahid Bagheri's drones are capable of, we need only look in detail at the ones that Iranian state media have showed deployed aboard the vessel. Take the Ababil, specifically the Ababil 3N, a nautical variant of a single-engine drone that's seen battle in Iraq, Sudan, Yemen, Syria, and elsewhere. Capable of flying at a range of up to 100 kilometers or 62 miles for a total of 4 hours at a time, the base version of the Ababil 3 can take real-time video to map targets for attack, and later iterations of the drone have been fitted with weaponry as well. The Marjar 6, also pictured aboard the Shahid Bagheri, features a much larger action radius of 2,400 kilometers or 1,300 nautical miles, an endurance of up to 12 hours, and the capacity to carry up to 6 guided missiles or bombs. Iran intends to build at least 40 of them for naval use, and they've been proven effective in Sudan, Ukraine, and Iraqi Kurdistan. Perhaps most potent of all is the Qaher 313, first revealed to the public as a vaporware attempt at a single-seat stealth fighter back in 2013, but since redesigned into a stealthy unmanned drone. The capabilities of the redesigned 313 are murky at best, and in fairness, it could still basically be vaporware, although it's been filmed taking off and landing from the Shahid Bagheri during its unveiling. It could, however, be made into a dangerous asset under the right circumstances. Taken together, those drones would grant Iran the capability to launch complex, coordinated drone assaults, even on targets located far inland on enemy soil. And while it's not yet known whether the Qaher 313 could deal with and sneak past modern air defense systems, the possibility can't be counted out. And just as important as the aircraft that Iran has advertised on the Shahid Bagheri are the ones that it hasn't advertised. If you'll notice, one clear commonality between all the drones we've mentioned is that they're intended to be recovered and reused. But those aren't the only kind of UAV that Iran has in its arsenal. Instead, we've got to reckon with the possibility that the Shahid Bagheri could also be compatible with Iranian kamikaze drones. Take, for example, the Shahed 136, a cheap, mass-produced kamikaze UAV that's realized major combat success both in the Middle East under Iranian control and in Russia in the form of a Russian-made derivative called the Garand 2. The Shahed 136 weighs just 200 kilos or 440 pounds. It flies at only 185 kilometers or 150 miles an hour, but it can fly for distances of up to 2,500 kilometers or 1,600 miles using AI piloting to deliver a 50 kilogram or 110 pound warhead on target. All that it does for a price believed to be less than the equivalent of $50,000 per unit. The Shahed 136 uses a rocket to take off using an apparatus that can fit on any military or commercial truck, and that could certainly be used on the Shahid Bagheri with minimal trouble. How many Shahed 136s the Shahid Bagheri could carry is an open question, and if they were to be used in large-scale drone swarms alongside the recoverable drones that are known to operate off the Shahid Bagheri's flight deck, then there'd be a far more fearsome prospect for Iran's adversaries across the globe. A combination of advanced reconnaissance drones, surveillance drones able to map and designate targets, kamikaze drones to wipe them out and occupy air defenses, and both stealthy and non-stealthy drones to take advantage of the chaos and launch well-calibrated precision strikes could be a nightmare even for modern militaries, even before we factor in the additional use of manned, unmanned, or kamikaze surface vessels against coastal targets. Not only that, but Iran has a number of other advanced drones in early production that could very well be grafted onto the Shahid Bagheri in time. The Shahed 149 is a high-altitude, long-endurance drone similar to America's Reaper drone, capable of carrying up to 13 bombs and flying for up to a day, while the Mahajr 10 brings similar capabilities. The drone both are based on, the Mark 9 Reaper, has recently been adapted for takeoff from aircraft carrier-sized runways. Other upcoming designs, the Arash 2, may be adapted for carrier use in due time. It's tempting, when we discuss any military asset, to try and measure it strictly in terms of its value in a head-to-head confrontation against equivalent technology from another nation. On that metric, it's plain to see that the Shahid Bagheri carrier will fall short. Put it against the USS Gerald R. Ford, let alone a whole carrier strike group, and there's no question who ultimately wins that battle. But most of the time, a simple head-to-head comparison misses the point of an asset like this. Not necessarily to outclass any direct competition, but to accentuate and evolve the military capabilities of the nation that uses it. Iran doesn't fight like the United States. Iran doesn't fight like China. It doesn't fight like Russia or the nations of Europe or any other regional military powers across the world. Iran, more than any other nation, runs a military that's practically built around its drones. And for that sort of military, the Shahid Bagheri is a fitting addition. It may not be the right tool for every job, and it's certainly not going to be able to realize its full potential by sailing one single unaccompanied copy across the globe. But for nations that may find themselves on Iran's bad side, it's going to be a very long day if the Shahid Bagheri shows up on their coast. And if Iran can pick its battles well, then it'll find circumstances where the Shahid Bagheri is primed to win. Thank you for watching.